Oh gosh, where do I even begin? I hate it when I'm like too earnest or whatever. It's kind of embarrassing, but I feel like I've got to say something about this because this stuff with the Olympics has really bothered me, because even though I consider myself to be someone who operates in pretty good faith, right? I'll talk shit and I'll make a joke, or nobody's perfect, but I do try to operate in good faith, right? I do try to be on the side of truth, and I do try to be as reasonable as possible. But it has been bothering me this week watching people who I had a role in radicalizing, unfortunately, just completely go off the deep end. And I think it's really important to start looking at who you're supporting, what you're supporting, who you are, whether you like what you're seeing, and maybe looking at getting some help around that. Because if I can't reach you, I'm at a loss. Honestly, I'm at a loss about what to do about this, because I do feel partially responsible. But I've always tried to operate in good faith. I've tried to sort through the disinformation, and I've tried to keep people away from the far right who have basically co-opted every part of this issue to the point where and nobody sane would touch it. Then I feel like I need to keep them sane. And I feel like I need to, if I don't stay on that platform and keep trying to pull them back, that they'll be gone forever. And I'm seeing that happen over and over and over again. And that's why I shout into the void, despite it being hopeless, because it's my own guilt. It's my own guilt at having made fun of people like Jessica Yaniv, defended Meghan Murphy against her Twitter ban, defending and explaining the issue when Kelly J. Keane, aka Posey Parker, was first on the scene, and introducing people to various other people who have then gone on and made these like massive like far right propaganda accounts, and it's just, I don't know what to do. I feel partially to blame. I feel like I have contributed to this, and I am at a loss at how to fix it because it's bigger than me. I went in good faith. Like a lot of the people I think that got sucked in by some of this culture wars stuff, they did it in good faith. I'm someone who does try to operate in good faith. I do tend to be somewhat empirical. I do tend to be evidence-based in the way that I approach things. But I am a bit of a smartass, and I like a joke as much as anyone, right? But one thing you need to know is that X, formerly known as Twitter, is a reality distortion app, okay? It distorts your reality, and most social media does, okay? I mean, I've been talking about this for years. Like, obviously, like 2014 was probably the turning point, but probably a bit earlier than that, where I started to see that the internet was not organic anymore, that the cat was out of the bag with marketers. People had figured out the formula, that sort of Coney 2012, that tugging at the heartstrings, people doing clicktivism, that was the word of the time. All right, this is where all of these things started to collide. The people started to understand how you could use and manipulate data, and also how you could nudge people in certain directions. Like in my field of user experience design, I saw that all of these things would sort of converge and collide, okay? That really started to happen around 2014, but obviously the real world consequences really only hit with Donald Trump being elected. Right. And I focused on the gender stuff because it seemed to be where a lot of these issues were colliding all at once. And I think because it capitalized on people's ignorance, okay, on both sides, okay. People tend to defer to people who sound persuasive, okay. People tend to defer to people who sound like they know what they're talking about. And obviously we saw this when the sort of intellectual dark web, where people like Jordan Peterson would talk shit, and they just, as long as you use big words and you wrap it in big words and you sound like you know what you're talking about, there's a large portion of people who will just take that as a given and that you're an authority on that thing. And that's not necessarily the case, because a lot of propaganda is not so much about overt lies, even though the far right are engaging in overt lies, which is what we're seeing at this Olympics thing right now. But they also lie by omission. Okay, so what I realized about 2 years into my YouTube career, whatever that is, and once I started seriously focusing on fixing this problem, right, was it wasn't so much what was said, but more what was left out by both sides. Okay, so what you see, especially in US politics, is two major parties who are running with narratives and omitting certain things. And that tweaked me. And again, that's because I'm an old lefty. I happen to be in Australia. I happen to have been born like under lower socioeconomic area, all of those things. I haven't had that sort of middle class life that a lot of people have had. And so I saw through a lot of this stuff and I'm like, wow, they're leaving stuff out here. They're leaving stuff out. They just say stuff like cultural Marxism. Okay, that's not a thing. I know what Marxism is. It's not that controversial. It's really like, what the fuck? Like, I started to realize when I engaged in this stuff in good faith, okay, the gender debate was part of the focus, but it wasn't my focus. I've always been okay with being misunderstood. Okay, I just let my stuff be what it is. It's there. It's why I live stream. It's my thoughts in the moment. Also, it doesn't take me 30 takes like this video. But part of the reason why I live stream is because it is unfiltered. One thing that I'm quite confident in when I say stuff, even though it's silly or funny or off the cuff, a lot of the stuff that I talk about is stuff that I actually know about. And I've always taken that very seriously. So when I talk about stuff, I say it even though it takes me a while to get to the point. What you're seeing is me processing complexity and trying to distill it into simple and concise words, because a lot of these issues are incredibly complex with a lot of moving parts, and it really depends on what you're focusing on, what you omit. It's a matter of emphasis, right? And that's something that I observed the right-wingers and basically anyone engaging in the culture wars is leaving stuff out. Starting a YouTube channel was really important for me to do, because I think if I hadn't put myself in the position of being a content creator, okay, whatever that means, I would have missed things such as the love bombing that occurs from the back end of like comments and patrons and all that sort of stuff. I would have missed that. If I hadn't put myself in that position, I would not have realized the position that content creators are in when it comes to being rewarded for saying certain things and punished for saying other things by various actors and various people. Like, it's not a mystery to me that there are agencies dedicated to nudging content creators. Like, I would not have realized that had I not been on the receiving end of it, had I not received certain phone calls trying to get me to push certain narratives, and if I hadn't been both love bombed by the right and then have them promptly turn on me and mass report me and all that sort of stuff. So putting myself through that experiment was beneficial, because I think I have a deeper insight into this issue than an outsider would, because there was a point where this channel was growing quickly. There was a point where I was getting patrons and all of that, and most of the patrons that I picked up are patrons I picked up at the beginning who've stuck it out with me, because I have not been able to grow since I started talking about the problem of the far right co-opting socialism and socialist ideas and feminist ideas and co-opting that and sending people down this batshit fucking route where people have gone from, oh, Jessica Yaniv represents a gap in the law that might be a policy problem down the track that maybe we should figure out. When there was no data, there is now data, so that changes the conversation, to now transvestigating fucking every Olympian they think looks like a man. And it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck are you doing? It's like, this has been an ongoing process for the last few years where I picked up a bunch of like gender critical people, right? I mean, the first red flag for me was when they stopped saying that they were feminists and they wanted to be more inclusive, irony, inclusive of the far right by an anti-feminist by calling themselves gender critical rather than feminists, right? That was the first red flag for me. I'm like, well, no, because the conflict was a left-wing debate between left-wingers who are doing radical feminist analysis on policy problems around rights and that sort of stuff. It was always a good faith thing. That problem has never changed. It has never gone away. The people who were calling radfems fascists can go fuck themselves too, because there was a substantive policy problem here that has worked its way through. There's data available now. We have more information than before, and it's resolving, okay? But now, like this having been co-opted by the far right and culminating in just this, all I can say is call it a moral panic. It's all it is. It's a trans panic. It's a new satanic panic. It's insane. It is astroturf to shit. So that was another thing that led me to this, was the realization that most people can't spot when they're arguing with a bot. They don't understand when they're being catfished or nudged or all of that sort of stuff. For whatever reason, this makeup of like my experience, my training, my career, and my personality makes me somewhat immune to these things. I'm lucky that I know when I'm being lied to, and I know when I'm being gaslit, and I'm just very sensitive to that. So it's something that I can see, but not a lot of people have those skills. And so I've watched this happen over a period of years, and I feel a sense of responsibility. So having gone through that process and leaned into it a little bit more than I would have liked, I was A/B testing content over the years and trying different things. And I found that there was a very clear pattern with saying certain things, using certain titles, using certain headlines, taking certain positions. So anything that involved being reasonable or fact-based, or sort of brought to the surface anything that had been omitted, right? So telling people how stuff works. So how SEO works, how content farms work, how astroturfing works, how AI bots work, how these things work, how you can use these things to manipulate people on social media, and how you can, all of the sort of dark information stuff. It was only when I started talking about that stuff that I started to, obviously, it's not rocket science to realize that I was on the receiving end of said firms, and that's fine. That's part of it. I keep soldiering on. But I went from pretty influential to influential with the worst people on earth, because I was obviously leaning into it and I gave them too much faith, to then going, seeing what this is and going, no, fuck you, I don't want to be part of this, because this is actually politically quite precarious and very serious. It's not just an internet fight. It's not just the comment section. Like for 2 or 3 years, I thought it was just the comment section. Like I didn't think that this would actually trickle down into real life and everyone having collectively lost their minds. I had no idea that people would lose their minds like this. Otherwise sensible people, otherwise smart people, who would have their brains melt in such a spectacular fashion. And it's very, very distressing, because I played a role in that. There's a number of people who I pointed out that these things were occurring and they were a bit crazy, and that people were being radicalized in either direction. Okay. I mean, like I said, the people calling people like me far right and fascist, I've warned you over and over and over again that people who aren't like me, I know that you're just brainwashed and stupid. They don't know that. I've warned the left repeatedly what the strategy is, which is to get you to react, to get you to call them far right, to get you to say something's problematic, to get you to say something is transphobic, okay? There is a whole funnel dedicated to every single one of those things that says, because I tested this. There was a video where I was like, I'm far right now. And I leaned into it because it was part of my experiment. But I was also surprised. Like a lot of it was, I was just like, what the fuck? These idiots think that disagreement makes you a Nazi. And it's like, okay, that's insane. That is absurd. But then I obviously, over a period of 6 months, realized that a lot of that was astroturfed. A lot of that was bot-driven harassment based on, it was just automated, right? A lot of this stuff was automated. But it was catching people. And so, but I also noticed that there was an incentive to do that. So the second that you go onto something like YouTube and say, what? I was called a Nazi, guess who shows up? The far right. They monitor this stuff. They measure this stuff. They look for creators who they can like groom into spreading propaganda. Again, I've received these phone calls. I have talked to these people. I have helped people when they're starting their podcast and watched them go and warned them against it and watched them go in that direction, because that's where the money is. Okay, I've watched it. I've helped these people. And that's why I feel partially responsible for a lot of this stuff, because I should have known what I was up against. And it's only in retrospect that I honestly thought that this was a smaller problem than it is. I thought that you could still reason with people up until recently. I knew that people had fallen victim to internet cults, because that's been a big part of what I do for a living. Not make cults, but building community management, all that sort of stuff has been my bread and butter for nearly 30 years. And so I knew that this had sort of turned on its head and turned into cults. But I didn't realize just how bad it was, how pervasive it was, how hard it was going to be to fix the problem, because I honestly thought that just alerting people to the problem would be enough. It wasn't, because people didn't care, because people cared about the money. They cared about the clicks. They cared about the numbers. They cared about their quarterlies. They didn't care about anything other than what was in front of them right now. And that's been a worry for me, like for many years. And I went from growing quickly to stalling because I started to talk about the far right. But I also think that the council fucks are a problem too. But I do feel somewhat responsible for the role that I've played. But I want it to be crystal clear. I don't support cancel culture in any of its forms. It's mostly bots, okay, and people who are just making content, okay. There's no politics here, okay. It does have a downwind effect. I've been warning about this downwind effect for years now, even though I was like, hey guys, you might want to be aware of this chatter. Because again, I saw this chatter years ago, right? I was like, oh shit, this has a downwind effect on real world policy and real world politics that you might want to be aware of, okay, which is this growing cohort of women who are being slowly radicalized into the far right through no fault of their own, because they don't have the theoretical basis to be able to withstand the propaganda, and they're going to be voting against their own interests. This is a propaganda machine. Again, I've tried for years and years and years and years and years to warn people that this is what was happening, that I feel guilty about it. I feel bad because sometimes obviously people con you, my picker was off early on because I thought that a lot of the people that I was talking to along the way had the same concerns as me, but they didn't. They were interested in, they were there predominantly for self-interest as whatever. But yeah, it's troubling. It's bothering me a lot. But I want it very clear. Like if you're transvestigating Olympians, you're gone. You need help, okay? If you're still defending Kellie J. Keane and you are still defending these right-wingers, we're not friends. I can't be. I have to draw a line now. I've spent 3, 4, 5 years self-harming, trying to save you. I've never had a problem with being misunderstood because I follow a process that is protective from going too far down any rabbit hole, right? I'm well educated and I depend on empirical evidence. I like data, all that sort of stuff. So I'm somewhat protective, right? I don't let my feelings hijack my opinions as much as possible. Again, I just happen to be immune to certain things. That's my superpower. But even though I was operating in good faith, I really should have, I tried my best. I tried my best to keep people and persuade them and beg them to not pull down this pipeline. But they still did anyway. And I feel really bad about that because my work overlaps with the issue, but it's not, the issue is not my work. My issue is around internet products and internet design and user experience and tech, and how, and now increasingly the solutions to this breaking of the internet, like this insanity that everyone seems to be developing, and it's getting worse. I've sat around for 5 years doing self-harm, trying to save people who not only ignored me, which I don't mind being ignored. I don't mind being misunderstood and I don't mind being ignored. I've gone viral. I don't care about that. That's not my motivation. It's not what I care about. But the reason that I stuck around and stuck it out was because I felt a sense of responsibility to try and save as many people from going down that rabbit hole as I possibly could. But my own time has been taken from me because I felt like I needed to help and I needed to try and keep people on the straight and narrow, which didn't work because I'm up against billionaires and billionaire resources and people with brainworms and angry people. And like, I can't fight that stuff. But I just want to make it very clear because I'm not, like I said, I don't care about being misunderstood. Being misunderstood, that's fine. Okay, because I know that I do the right thing. I know that I am fair. I know that I'm kind. I know all of these things, okay, about myself. And I also know my flaws. You can't tell me anything about myself that I don't already know. And if you try to say something that I know isn't true, I know it's not true, so it doesn't affect me. But I do need to make it very clear that this is not acceptable to me. Okay, I have always been a trans ally. I have always been on the left. I have always been a socialist. I am of the left, not on the left. On the left implies that there is a club, Okay, I am of the left, which means I was born into a certain set of circumstances that mean that I see the world a certain way and I fight for the world from my perspective, which was that I was born in a lower socioeconomic area. I am a woman. I was born in underprivileged, but I was also born in a society where I had access to education and healthcare, and I'm a benefit of the dwindling social democracy that we had in the 80s, right? So I benefited from having access to certain things so I see it from both sides, right? And so for me, seeing this sort of elite rich kids just hijacking this stuff and using socialist talking points, but they're just rich kids, and they flipped it into identity politics, and this woke shit was absurd. It was absurd to me. Okay, it's rich kid politics where their priorities aren't in order. They're worried about all of the wrong things, and I saw this for what it was, which was that it is a big weapon of mass distraction to get you angry at the wrong people and distracted from the right causes. And because people who are richer or haven't actually grown up working class, they sit around talking about the working class, not to them. Okay, they haven't actually experienced anything to do with being underprivileged. They're just rich people who have co-opted the street cred of the left, gentrified it beyond recognition, and they're right wingers. Okay. Similarly, you've got your right wingers who are co-opting the working class and the working class rage and the cost of living and people's helplessness and alienation and atomization and the eroding of their rights as workers, as citizens, as users, as customers, all of this stuff, and they're turning it onto Muslims, and they're turning it onto Jews, and they're turning it onto a scapegoat. That's fascism. That is the literal definition of what fascism is and how it behaves. Okay, so if you are scapegoating groups, you are a fascist. Okay, you need to be focused on the right things. You need to be focused on facts, data, working within this democratic process, and it is still democratic, okay? You need to show up to things. You need to actually educate yourself about the issue that you are mouthing off about, not just creating content, okay? Even while doing all of this good faith stuff, there's a whole bunch of people that are there's a whole bunch of people that are radicalized right now because of me, even though I operated in good faith. If you're not operating in good faith, there's probably 100 times more, okay? And again, you're not operating in good faith. You're obsessed with content. You're obsessed with likes. You're obsessed with all this other shit. So I can't reach you. I have tried so hard to reach you. Okay, I'm sitting here trying to patch up wounds and fucking tweak people's dissonance on a daily basis at my own expense, my own cost, and not it's worth it for me because one person that I have managed to keep from this thing that I see coming thick and fast is worth it for me. Okay. But it's not worth it at the same time because it feels there's just something so inevitable about all of this. The one thing that I do, I feel like I just don't feel like I can walk away from this issue until everyone that I inadvertently pushed down that right-wing pipeline is back. Then my work will be done then. It'll be done then. It'll be done when you come back. It's so frustrating to see this. I operated in good faith. I know what I'm talking about. I'm educated. This is my lane, okay? And I'm saying that you're too far gone. And I want you to get your shit together. And I want you to start, just take a break from politics. Take a break from the news cycle. Get your head straight. Stop scrolling. Please stop scrolling. Unfriend people who are doing transvestigations on cis women right now, okay? It's obscene. It is absurd. It is insane. There's so many different areas that can explain this, especially in psychology. In social psychology, there's lots and lots and lots of different things, lots and lots of different sort of building blocks to where we are. But I just want you to know that I saw this coming, and it's why I do this, why I talk to 10 fucking people. It's why I keep hoping that I'm going to get cut through on this stuff, because it is now here. I'm warning you. You are falling into fascism. You are falling into something that you will regret. Like, I already regret the small role that I played in this, okay? I regret everything because I was wrong, and I've self-corrected since then, and I'm doing the best I can to try and educate people. I'm up against a tsunami of propaganda. There's nothing really that I can do other than just sit here and stubbornly refuse to budge and hope for the best and hope that people are going to come to their senses and that with time I'll be proven right, like I usually am. Like, most of the time I'm right. The 1 out of 10 times I'm wrong is usually because it's catastrophically wrong, but it's usually because I've missed something and I've run off a faulty premise, and that's what happened with this. The faulty premise with things like the IDW and the cancel culture stuff was that they were operating in good faith and that they didn't know, that they were ignorant about what Marxism is. They were ignorant. They didn't know better. They were asking a lot of questions that I had answers to. So basically I was invited onto a lot of those things early on. And I thought that it was because I wasn't a very good guest, because I waffle and I meander and all that sort of stuff. Like, I thought that it was me. I'm not a professional media person. I'm not camera friendly, right? It doesn't come naturally to me, and especially early on, like, most of my stuff is so fucking cringe, right? But I did notice that when I would actually take the time to explain certain things, or when I was actually a left-winger and I would go from the left-wing perspective and say, hey, this stuff is a distraction from class, all of these things that go against the far-right narrative, they wouldn't put the episodes up. They would omit them. And I was like, that's interesting. Initially, I thought, like I said, it was because of my personal presentation skills. Like, that's possible. That's still possible, right? It is still possible that I was such a dog shit guest that episode never saw the light of day. But over time, I started to see that as a pattern. It was really interesting. So long as I didn't actually talk about the material conditions or real socialist analysis, or that's not what this means, okay? Here's what socialism is. Here's what blah, blah, blah. All those types of things, actual fact-checking, actual correcting. Anytime I did that, it wouldn't show up. But anytime I just went along with it, it would. And it was really interesting to me. So I started to A/B test that over time. And obviously I realised that people were just lying by omission. They weren't looking for the answers. They were looking for people for those questions to create a vacuum that they could then fill with their own idea, this cultural Marxism narrative, that stuff. What those questions do, when they ask these questions rhetorically, what they're doing is they are creating those questions in your mind, creating a vacuum, okay? And this is what cults do. They destroy you, they break you down so they can rebuild you and your sense of self and make it in a way that you are trapped with, that they can shape your worldview. They can shape what you're thinking. They can shape all of that sort of stuff. That's what cults do. So what I realised, obviously, a few years ago was that the right wing, especially the Murdoch Press and the various off Thiel stuff and all that sort of stuff, those networks were deliberately engaging in this type of top-down campaign. And I got calls from people who were asking me to spread certain things. And it was very clear that they were offering me money and opportunities and all that sort of stuff on the condition that I shared certain things. And I said, fuck you. No, that's not, I am of the left. It's not a club, okay? This is my life. This is my career. This is my life's work. I'm not going to share that, okay? That has happened to me. People keep acting like I don't know stuff. It's like, no, I went through this and I was one of the only people who said no to them because I'm not a fucking fame whore, clout-seeking hack. I actually care about, what I say and what I put out there. The reason why I'm so fucking crippled by writer's block and stuff right now and I haven't done stuff is because how do you even begin to distill what I've been through in the last 10 years with this stuff? It's big. It's huge. I'm up against infinite resources, infinite fucking bots. I'm up against, I don't have the resources to fight this stuff. And every so often I'll find a journalist or whatever who I think is worth listening to, but they're few and far between. And it's just exhausting. And it's like, okay, Where to from here? That's like, I can, that's why I'm training to be a lawyer, because it seems to be the only real solution to make sure that we can. But these are big fucking problems, and I don't want you caught up in it, because all I see is those people who, I don't know. I don't know how to fix it. I wish I knew how to fix it. And if anyone could fix it or come up with a solution to it, it's me. And I'm out of ideas. It's too big. And there's not enough of us. Billionaires control the algorithms. This isn't going to get seen. It doesn't get seen because no one wants to address the problem, because everyone's on the take. Everyone's making money from it. And it's like, there's not enough I'm only one person. There's not enough of me. There's some people, okay, like Cory Doctorow. There's a whole bunch of other people that are doing this work, but we're way outnumbered. We're so outnumbered. Even finding lawyers who know tech with enough intimate detail. If you're a tech lawyer right now, you're going to easily be paid $1 million plus a year to be working as general counsel at a tech company. All the incentives are there for you to be an in-house person who is anti-user, trying to wriggle out of this stuff, doing the bad guy stuff. If you're at all seduced by the paycheck and you're a competent tech lawyer who understands the space, you're going to be paid easily $1 million plus, 500,000 plus a year, plus stock, plus all of the other stuff to go work at Meta or Amazon to try and get out of these things. Not the people who fight them get paid fuck all, and stretched so thin for resources, because it takes quite a specific skill set. People like me are still a couple of years away from even being lawyers, and they're complex cases. And because of like all of these problems of jurisdiction and just they outnumber us, and it feels impossible. But I'll keep chipping away. But all I can do, I can't fight that part on my own. I can do what I can do. But one thing I can do is say that if you see this and you are engaging in sort of the culture wars stuff, start backing away from it, first of all. If you are talking about politics, knowing full well that you don't know much about politics, stop it, okay? When you are sharing something, try not to share in a state of anger. Try not to share when you are, if you see something that makes you angry, assume that there's been some information left out. Assume that someone is trying to get you to do something, which is usually to share it or to allow yourself to be used as a mule to recruit others, which is what happened to me. They used all my sort of blind spots and my charitability. This is where charitability can be a bad thing, because I was a little too forgiving and a little too understanding of people like Elon Musk. Like some of my old stuff where I've defended Musk was quite embarrassing. I mean, obviously things change. Like this is another thing, right? I've been looking at, there's this thing, I think there's a new phenomenon where people's object permanence is affected by, they don't realize that time has passed. So you are seeing a post that could be a year old or 2 years old. And because it's in front of your face right now, you are judging it on the basis of what you are seeing in front of you right now, right? You aren't seeing that it's 2-year-old content from someone who was in the context of 2 years ago. Like for me, some of this stuff around, especially around the gender debate and stuff, you've got to understand that when I was defending these people, we didn't have all of the information. We didn't have all of the data. We didn't have the information that we have today back then. And some of us were building parachutes on the way down. My instincts were going off and I was saying, there's something going on here. This is not right. This isn't normal internet user behavior. This isn't what I know. And so I dedicated my time to trying to figure out what that was. And a lot of that meant going down the wrong path sometimes. Okay, that happens with anything. Okay, with anything that you go, even a PhD student will go down a wrong rabbit hole sometimes, or lose focus or whatever. That's part of the deal of going into a deep dive, is sometimes going down the wrong street. Okay, but the important thing is that you are able to pull yourself out of that stuff and go back and how to filter out the information. Okay, I'm right 90% of the time. And the 10% of the time that I have been wrong, I know why I've been wrong, and it's been because I've missed something, or there's been information omitted. But I'm not in the business of prediction. Okay, this is a projection of things based on my experience, and like it could go one of two ways, but one of those ways is really fucking shit, is really bad, and I don't want you caught up in it. I don't want you caught up in violence towards Muslims. I don't want you caught up in genocide apologies. I don't want you caught up in the harassment of trans people. I want to save you from doing something that you will regret. And I know you will regret because I know you're a good person and I know you've just been duped by bad people, or you're a bad person and that's fine. Maybe I'm wrong because sometimes that's one of my vulnerabilities is that I tend to see good in people for too long and give them too many chances. I give too many chances to people to make it right. So you could well be a terrible person, but I don't think you are. I think you've been caught up with something that you haven't gone into very deeply. You've made friends. You feel a sense of loyalty. Like for me, I feel a misguided sense of loyalty to a lot of people who've fallen into this pipeline, partially because I put some of them there and also because I genuinely like them as people and I think they're very smart, but I think they've been they've caught brainworms, okay? And so I stick around and I try to persuade them to come back and try to snap them out of that as much as I can, but I'm only one person. And I can only do that so long as I get seen, and I'm not being seen. So there's not really a lot of point. But I do it anyway because every so often I'll get someone who thanks me for my work and appreciates me. And yeah, just knock it off. Knock off the harassment of people. Knock off the transvest. What's it to you? Who cares? Why do you suddenly care about the Olympics? I don't fucking care about it. Why do you suddenly care about boxing? Why do you suddenly care about this when there's a cost of living crisis, when there's a housing affordability crisis, when there's all of these other things going on, okay, that you could focus your energy on today and get better outcomes? Even if you can't be asked leaving your house, why is this the issue that you're tweeting about? Why aren't you tweeting about like the housing crisis right now? That's something that you could actually do. You could help homeless people. You could help fight something that actually, why are you fighting the Olympics? Who cares about the Olympics? What the fuck? Okay, get your head straight. Boxing at the Olympics is suddenly your biggest issue from your castle where you could feed 1,000 homeless people tomorrow and it barely make a fucking difference on your bank account. And this is your issue that you care about for women, even though women are the biggest growing cohort of homeless. Women are suffering homelessness. Do you care about aged care? Do you care about homelessness? Do you care about the cost of living? Do you care about access to daycare? Do you care about maternity leave? Do you care about reproductive rights? Do you care about what other things do you care about that affect women? But I'm going to talk about boxing. That's what I'm going to talk about. Who cares? Who cares? It's like, my God. Anyway, they're not even trans. For fuck's sake. They're not even trans. For fuck's sake. What's wrong with you? I don't know what to do. Honestly, I wish I knew what to do. But, anyway, come back. It's a dead end for you. I don't know what to say anymore. I feel so bad about it. I'm deeply worried about this. Partially, I'm really worried about what's coming. What I'm seeing, the politics has always been downwind from social media, and I saw it coming years ago, and I saw it snowballing. It's different when it's in the abstract, and then when you start to see what you suspected might be coming actually arrive and get here, it becomes deeply. I'm not doing okay with it. It's upsetting. So all I can do is just plead with you to distance yourself from this culture war stuff. Log off, please, because if you log off, I can log off and I can get my shit done, okay? And then if I get my shit done, I get to fucking sue these fucks who ruined everything, okay? I actually get to take action. If you can just free up some of my time for me so I don't have to sit here trying to feel like I need to save you, that would be nice. Do me a favor. If you don't like yourself enough to log off and log off for me. If you don't like me and you like yourself, do it for you. But log off from the culture wars. Stop it. Just stop. What the fuck? Here's your new policy. If you're looking at something that makes you angry, upsets you, and you feel that, but it is so far removed from you, like women's boxing at the Olympics, for example, that it is so far removed from where you're sitting, if it's not immediately in front of you, and your neighbourhood and your community, okay? If you're a female Olympic boxer, then it probably affects you, okay? Otherwise, the fuck's it got to do with you? That should be your first and last line. If you don't know anything about politics, and you don't, most people don't, turn around and say, the fuck's it got to do with me? What's this got to do with me? What am I avoiding? What am I escaping from? What yucky feelings am I trying to distract myself away from by spurging out over this stupid fucking abstract thing that didn't even happen? Look at yourself. Log off and go, what the fuck has it got to do with me? What has other people's shit got to do with me? What the fuck's it got to do with me? It doesn't have anything to do with you. Why are you wasting your time like this? Stop it. Because if you stop it, then I don't have to fucking deal with it either. Because right now I feel a weird sense of responsibility to tell you to log off. Log off, okay? Except for when you want to, except for my stuff. No, I'm kidding. But I'm serious. Get better information. You don't need this stuff. Stop. Just stop. That's all I can say. Just stop. Anyway, I love you. If you want to talk about it offline, I'm here anytime, okay? The fuck's it got to do with you? Log off.